South Africans always make a plan, Alec, and so we're making a plan with WildEarth, and we want to be a part of the success of having a positive impact and doing our bit for change. And I think the rest will fall into place. People will hear the story and understand, and those people who want to be involved with us will get involved. And we're open to conversation.
During my 3 years in London, one of the gentlemen that I saw a bit of was Andre Crawford-Brunt, a gent who is well known in the South African investment community, given his senior positions at Deutsche Bank here in South Africa and then internationally. We'll find out more about that, but more importantly, how Saffers remain deeply involved with the country, no matter where in the world they might be living at the moment. Andre is doing his bit in a big way to bring more tourists to South Africa in an amazing initiative we'll find out about in a moment. So there we go, Andre. That's quite an intro. Maybe let's start with you and a little bit of your background. We met, you were on a guest on my radio show. I don't know how many years ago, and probably for both of our sakes, we shouldn't say so. But when you were with Deutsche Bank in Johannesburg.
That's right, Alec. I think that's going back to the late 90s, if I'm not mistaken. I was lucky enough, and obviously the Ida Jones, Roy days, and then subsequent to that, the transition to Deutsche to be a guest on your show. Feels like just yesterday. So who knows where the time has gone.
It really does. But Deutsche Bank had a preeminent position in the South African financial markets for an extended period of time. And I only discovered last night when I was reading Michael Cardo's biography of Harry Oppenheimer that Anglo American was the very first foreign company to get a loan. The very first foreign company to get a loan from a German bank, which was Deutsche Bank.
Wow,
going
I
back
didn't
to
know
the
that.
early 50s. So not surprisingly, Deutsche then got pretty involved in South Africa. And at the time you were there, though, they really dominated the trading scene in this country.
Yeah, we were very fortunate. We had a phenomenal team of people. Murray Winkler was our CEO, Ted Woods, just some phenomenal individuals under, obviously, Ivor and Rob. And, I think they just very deep focus on research. And I think we were lucky enough to have a huge amount of institutional support and we're lucky enough to do some phenomenal deals. Alec, it was a great time to be in the markets, obviously through all the change from the trading floor to the tech-driven electronic systems that we have today. But it was a really interesting, phenomenal time to be involved at Deutsche.
And your story from there?
So, Alec, I moved across to London in the end of 2001, performed various roles, worked in London for a number of years, transitioned across to New York, was lucky enough to end up in a management position, sort of overseeing the trading operations globally for the bank, and then woke up one day in 2015 and decided that, when you want to drain the swamp, you can't consult the frogs. It was very obvious to me that there was a lot of change going on in the industry. Technology lowers the price at which you sell your goods. Banking is really an exercise in ego and getting bigger. And actually what a lot of the banks needed to do was get smaller and more efficient. And, the starting point, kind of, the old adage that the rising tide lifts all boats. A lot of us were grossly overpaid relative to our skill sets. And there were a lot of very average people, in my view, in banking, which I classify myself as one. And I kind of thought, banking is going to go through its own sort of renaissance. And, this is the most interesting period of time now to be alive. The convergence of multiple trends, AI, new breakthroughs in therapeutics, 3D printing. And I kind of took the view that I've been better lucky than smart over a two and a bit decade career. And I really wanted to explore what the next chapter was and what I could do. And so I retired from Deutsche end of 2015, set up a family office vehicle, and then subsequently have set up a number of venture funds involved in the IP coming out of Oxford University. And that's where I've spent my time. And then obviously WildEarth in the last year, I became the chair of a little company that I think is pretty well known in South Africa. Together with my business partner, we saw this company, which we sort of saw as an iconic, sort of on channel 183 on DSTV, a kind of a blend of all things good in South Africa, phenomenal lodges, access to wildlife, amazing creative people, and I spent a lot of time in the last 12 months trying to sort of steer the company and get it to a good position.
WildEarth, you've already opened the door to the real topic of this conversation. I think there are many South Africans who would have seen Channel 183 and seen these game drives or live game drives that you could you could participate in. It's interesting, going back a little bit, there used to be a company called Africam, which another guy from the financial services industry, Peter Armitage, ran. You're talking in the late 90s. So the idea has been there for a long time, but I guess the execution of it, of taking people on virtual game drives, has been the challenge.
Yes, it's been a phenomenal. The history of the company is actually really interesting, Alec, because they had a contract right up till the end of 2019 to broadcast on National Geographic's website. So they did a program called Safari Live, a sunrise and a sunset safari twice a day, exclusively to Nat Geo. Nat Geo paid them $350,000 a month. And it was the most watched piece of the Nat Geo website. And fast forward a little bit, end of 2019, Disney acquired Fox. Nat Geo was part of Fox. Disney took Nat Geo right behind the paywall, and effectively WildEarth found itself without its partner and sponsor. And the management team, obviously I'd not even heard of WildEarth yet, did a phenomenal job in 2020 doing a deal with DSTV. We're now on 25 different platforms and channels around the world. So KPM, Eutelsat, LG Plus, Samsung Plus, all the connected TVs. There's the advent of free ad-supported streaming television, or the internet, has enabled this kind of new evolution in streaming, which enables you to get to a large number of countries, and you can broadcast a channel and earn money off advertising. So phenomenal footprint and carriage that the company's grown, and we now reach 7 million people on a monthly basis all around the world.
Just go back a little bit. Why did you get involved? You have a family office. You have the whole world. You live in London. You have the whole world to choose from. Why something like this, and particularly the South African connection?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I always wanted to. I'm a passionate South African. I'm passionate about the bush, and I've been very fortunate in my life to have been to some phenomenal places, which we all know in the Sabi Sands. And I've always had a view that shouldn't just be the domain of the wealthy, and there are only a limited number of people that can afford some of the prices, obviously, that you need to pay. And it's such a phenomenal experience. And I always somehow, I think, from my youth, harbored this dream that one day I'll be able to sort of buy a piece of land or be part of something in that beautiful part of the world. The Sabi Sands is obviously very famous for its concentration of leopards and cats, etc. And I think what I recognized when I came across WildEarth was, technology's evolved, and what we can probably do is marry two things together. So by getting involved in a channel, we can showcase not just one area, multiple areas. We can digitally take people or transport people without the carbon footprint. And frankly, this is really engaging, because what WildEarth was doing was live, it's authentic, you're able to ask questions, it's interactive. And I sort of had this view, Alec, when I was doing my research, that if you look at the most trusted channel in North America is the Weather Channel. Where you find a channel that is non-political, family-friendly, is educational. When I started to look, just the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter, you kind of just see how people in the US were changing their sleeping patterns to fit in with the sunrise and sunset safari. And I think I realized there's this ritual in doing it every single day of the year, 365 days, that actually helps people escape. And the number of letters I receive from people saying, this saved my life, so the number of people suffering from mental health and depression who are able to transport themselves virtually for a short period of time a day and be present in nature, because we shoot point of view style. So as you've seen, the camera is behind the naturalist. So it's actually as if you're sitting on the back of a safari vehicle, in what I call the largest safari vehicle in the world, because we have 7 million people. That to me just appealed to me on multiple levels. And, I've never been involved in a media company. And, I just like the adage of the perfect timing. One, I'm a passionate South African. Two, the bush, the animals, South Africa, what we can do for conservation, how we can virtually take South Africa to the rest of the world as sort of a destination, a marketing business. And and just the good that we can do. I mean, the mission of my business partner and myself is we have a program, 1 hour of the sunrise and 1 hour of the sunset safari we donate to a product called WildEarth Schools, where schools all around the world, we had a school on from Roodepoort, from the east coast of the US, and a UK school the other day, classrooms logged in with Mrs. Smith asking the question, Johnny wants to know, how does a leopard get a girlfriend? So, my goal here is to take 1 million kids every month through our classroom. They can be anywhere in the world, but, they will see elephants, they will see lions, they'll get the opportunity to ask questions real time and fall in love with nature. And indirectly, I think we're creating the next generation of conservationists in the world. And excuse me, I think that's such a good cause to be a part of in a world that is as polarized as the one that we live in, where the news is inherently just consistently negative. And look, it's not without its challenges. South Africa, we deal with 12 hours of no electricity. We're broadcasting from remote places that are, difficult to kind of get in and out of. Forget the electricity challenge. We've got dangerous animals around us. So it's I fell in love with the mission and the vision. And, our partners in Amakhala, Kariga, obviously Djuma, where we're based, Madikwe, we've seen a huge uptick in foreigners looking to travel, who see the channel, who fall in love with it, and South Africans who just never realized that Amakhala and Kariga are these amazing places in the Eastern Cape that, have these beautiful pieces of land with amazing animals and, just some of the best lodges in the world. And I just thought that was a recipe for being able to do good. And hence the reason that we as a management team at WildEarth thought, you've got to be the change you want to see in the world. So, we can wait for other people to do the job, or we could put together an ad to market, to all the foreigners who watch our channel and the locals, a kind of a feel-good video about how lucky we are to have this beautiful country. And, I think I'm probably being kind when I say we've got some gaps. If South Africa was a company, there are definitely some gaps in our management, but there's so many positive and good things that we have going for us. And there's so much low-hanging fruit that we can do to catalyze that change, to improve growth, to promote ourselves as a tourism destination that, we want to play our part in doing that.
I can get the view that people are going to watch this and then want to go on a real life safari. So they're on a virtual safari. They're going to want to come to South Africa and come and see it for themselves. But the business model from your perspective, we've just seen BuzzFeed News go out of business. We've seen other companies that rely on lots of traffic and advertising supporting that traffic having a very tough time in the media space. How are you going to overcome that? Or are you looking to bring in some kind of a premium model as well?
No, look, Alec, we do have a subscription model, which is obviously ad-free. And look, you understand this industry much better than me, having been in media for a long period of time. It's not it's not an easy place to operate, where you compete against something like YouTube, which has 38 million channels, where a lot of content is for free. It's difficult, but I think what we have is, and I released a survey recently to our viewers. We've got 7,500 responses. 40% of the responses were from SA, 30% from the US, and roughly 30% Europe, 10% in the UK. And we asked on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being addicted. What do you think of WildEarth? We've got a 9.4 score. I would have been happy with a 7. So and we asked people, of the South African viewers, 80% of them watch daily, and the viewing hours per week are 22 hours. So just in that fabric, we've got a very loyal audience. We've got people who love safari, who love conservation. As I said, we're family friendly. To make this model ultimately work to scale, we need a partner, we need a sponsor, someone to come in and say, I want to own WildEarth Schools or partner with you. We'd like to sponsor the sunrise or sunset safari, where you have 7 million viewers, and I'm going to take that to 10 million. Or 15 million. That is obviously going to have appeal to different people. And, I think it's just getting over that hump that you need to, when I look at, we employ about 80 plus creative South Africans, and the quality of what we produce is on a par with the best in the world, in my view. And when I was doing my research on this business, the founder made a really interesting comment to me. They said, it costs about £500,000 to create 1 hour of BBC natural history footage. Well, we run our whole company every single day of the month for less than half of that. Okay. And we employ 80 plus people. So, being live, I think there's something about being live, making it really authentic and enabling you to engage and ask questions that is truly differentiating. And I think we're doing something that is really different. Alec, my big picture vision here, away from the schools and taking 1 million kids, is to have a channel that is live for 24/7, that you can log on to, and whether it is the Tigers in Todoba live from, India, or it is the Jaguars in the Pantanal, or it's some other event in the world. We now have the technology, and when we finally get to bring Starlink to South Africa, the technology in a year or two is going to be at a place to make the ability to stream much cheaper. So building an audience now I see as my primary focus, educating people about what we do, and then finding someone, one of the corporate CEOs who listens to your show, who says, I love this channel. That's what we want to be associated with. It's everything that appeals to us, South Africa, kids, conservation, nature, someone's going to come along and knock on our door. Anyway, that's the hope.
Starlink
we're trialing. Look, obviously you guys have covered that there is an issue with the government wanting to own a stake. Frankly, if, as our president suggested, the digital economy is hugely important to us, we've got to be at the forefront of these changes. Technology and access to technology and digital tools needs to become ubiquitous. These tools are evolving really quickly. There is coverage for a lot of our neighbors around Africa now. As I said, we're trialing it. You can buy it for roughly £800, costs you £200 per month. When we stream from various countries that we're in, the costs are significantly higher. So I see that as a really positive change and evolution, helping us improve our quality and lower our costs, and again, increasing our audience.
Just explain that. £200, is that what it costs you to do the Starlink?
Yeah, so if you go and buy a dish in the UK, you pay a one-off fee. They deliver it straight to your house, and you pay a monthly fee to Starlink, which is roughly £200. Where my expectation is that should come down, but enables you to drive anywhere in the country that you're in, providing they're set up and it's legally okay for you to be using Starlink. You can drive anywhere, and if you're camping on the Highlands in Scotland, you pull out your dish and you have internet connectivity, at a rate that enables you to do anything as if you had as if you were sitting at home at your desk and had access to the internet. So, again, making it ubiquitous, taking it to rural areas, giving people more tools and access to bandwidth that ultimately is what we want. And, the price comes down, more people have access to more skills. And as we've learned in the mobile universe we operate in, more people innovating, communicating, and consuming online has got to be good. And Africa, as the youngest, fastest growing population in the world, is going to be a big beneficiary of that. So my hope is the regulators finally get their mind around recognizing the pluses and the minuses, and trying to own a 30% stripe of that is probably going to be perceived as being self-interested ahead of the broader interests of, the country.
So what we understand is Starlink is an initiative by Elon Musk, who is a South African, or certainly grew up in South Africa. He now lives in America. I think he still holds a passport, or a South African passport. He is not prepared to give 30% of the South African business to BEE, and this is making the government unhappy. How can you be trialing if the government hasn't actually okayed it yet?
Well, it's just that it's a trial. I purchased it in the UK, and we kind of have a sandbox, so we're not using it in any part of our business. But I'm really interested, to the extent this technology becomes freely available and is approved from a regulatory perspective, that we're able to utilize it in our business. So to be clear, we're not using it in our business, but we're trialing it in different formats. And I think definitely in places, I think Mozambique, it's approved, but to the extent we do the migration in Kenya again from the Masai Mara, that could really be interesting for us to potentially be able to use it on the basis that it lowers our satellite costs pretty significantly.
Andre, why did you, though, get involved in the business? How was the business available for you to, as a financial guy, to invest in it?
Well, the only reason I really got involved, Graham Wallington and Peter Armitage, as you alluded to, Graham and I were school friends, old school friends from St. John's, and we reconnected about a year and a half when he moved across to the UK with a vision to kind of basing WildEarth more closely to Bristol, which is the Natural History Centre in the UK. And his big vision was this kind of, the Netflix of nature, making this 24/7. And I think his appreciation was, that you needed to take it outside of South Africa to broaden the footprint, do deals in all these European countries, US countries, connected TVs, and grow the audience. And, as you've highlighted, it's challenging. These businesses require large amounts of capital, and I guess more by default, I sort of got involved. But as I started to learn more about the business, and I started to learn about, the healing powers that nature has and what we can do with technology, and I started to see the audience, I started to think that this is something that really was worth fighting for. It's an iconic part of our fabric, and its ability to do good and have a positive change, bringing people to South Africa. I think there are lots of people in different parts of the world who don't know how beautiful South Africa is, who have a bucket list wish of wanting to go on safari. I mean, just to give you the numbers, global safari is a $32 billion industry. African safari is a $12 billion industry. We understand tourism. I think we've got some of the best assets in the world in terms of our lodges, our hotels, our hospitality, our food and drink. I've traveled all around the world, and some people disagree vehemently with me, but I think it's very hard to beat, and certainly value for money. I think you have to go very, very far to try and beat what we have on our doorstep. And we just got to tell that story. And the more we tell that story, the more people want to come. The flight back from South Africa the other day was full. The queues were full. The restaurants were fully booked when I tried to get into a couple of restaurants in Cape Town. That's positive. That's what we need against the backdrop of some of the doom and gloom and the challenges that we face. But South Africans always make a plan, Alec, and so we're making a plan with WildEarth, and we want to be a part of the success of having a positive impact and doing our bit for change. And I think the rest will fall into place. People will hear the story and understand, and those people who want to be involved with us will get involved. And we're open to conversation.
Andre Crawford-Brunt is the co-owner of WildEarth, and I'm Alec Hogg from biznews.com.